Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Bill, and we're going to tell you a little story about the Hollywood bomber. We're going to give you a little bit of background on what the Hollywood Bomber project is. So first off, we're at the Vintage Flying Museum in Fort Worth, Texas, at Meacham Airport, and that is the site and the current owner of the what we call the Hollywood Bomber. The reason we call it the Hollywood Bomber is because of its background and all that. So what is the Hollywood Bomber? The Hollywood Bomber is a 1954 Beechcraft E-18 Echo 18 S-9700. So it's got a 9,700 pound gross weight. It's a 1954 E-18. The E-18 was the beginning of what Beechcraft called this Super 18s. What is a Super 18? All it means it has a tall cabin, which you can tell from the earlier D models and any of the previous aircraft, the C-45s. You can tell the side windows back in the cabin on this aircraft are a little bit taller, and as they were on the E model, the G model, and the H model aircraft. This is a tailwheel aircraft, always has been, was not modified. The aircraft was built as a commercial aircraft. Originally in 1954, it was sold to Williams Brothers, which is now the Williams Company up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Though that company used it for oil exploration. They used it for a few years in Tulsa doing oil exploration and pipeline development. Then they moved it down to Venezuela. It flew down to Venezuela under a Venezuelan registration number. Then it went from there back to Tulsa, came back to Tulsa, flew for a few more years with Williams. Then, and you gotta pardon some of the background noise. Again, we're at Meacham Airport. We have a lot of corporate traffic and jet traffic, military jet traffic coming through. So you might hear some of that in the background, and that's part of our great background music. Williams ran it for a few more years after it came back to the States. Then it was sold through Tulsa, the Beechcraft dealership in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where it was originally sold, and kind of came back there to a company over in Fort Smith, Arkansas Best Freightway, and that helped develop their terminals, trucking terminals, all that. Again, Arkansas Best Freightway was a terminal or trucking company. They had it for several years based out of Fort Smith, and again it came back for maintenance back to Tulsa at Tulsa International Airport. Then it went to Central Enterprises, something like that, and pardon I don't have my notes here with me, but what is now Channel 2 in Tulsa. The TV station it was at that time was KVOO, and they flew it as they were developing the brand new television station in Tulsa. Following that, it went back to Tulsa, Beechcraft dealership in Tulsa, and then it was sold to Jackie Cochran, or Jacqueline Cochran, the World War II, famous for the World War II WASP program, and then also before that she was a air racer. After that she owned a cosmetics company, and also was with the Air Force, and to this date there are still some women's airspeed records, world speed jet records that are held by Colonel Jacqueline Cochran, U.S. Air Force retired. So she had her for a few years. She lived out in Indian Wells, Indian Springs, out by Palm Springs, California. She then had heart issues, wasn't able to fly it anymore. She sold it to a Merv Griffin. Merv Griffin had a talk show back in the day. The neat thing about Merv is he used it in the valley to move the different folks that were on his talk show around to ease getting around the LA Basin area. He'd go and have his airplane go pick up the folks, and then it did trips out to Palm Springs, it did trips out to Vegas and whatnot, living in the Los Angeles area. And that is one of the reasons why we call it the Hollywood Bomber. Is one of the neat things about Merv's pilot is in his logbooks, in our logbooks for the aircraft, he wrote down who was in the back seat of the aircraft at all times. So that was kind of neat. So it's kind of neat to see that kind of stuff. But we've got stars like Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman and all that flew in this aircraft, and we'll kind of go through those. In fact, tell you what, let me go over and we'll read the list off to you. It's kind of neat. So here we have copies of the original logbook, and I'll flash those up for you. But what's neat is, as I was talking, the pilot for Merv kept a logbook and noted who was in the back as passengers, just to kind of keep track of who was in the airplane. Probably most importantly is probably for the accountant to figure out who was doing what and whatever. But it's kind of neat. We have here, I'll just read it off. We've got Dick Carson. That was Johnny Carson's brother. He was, I believe he was Merv's producer or director, something like that. We've got Ray Sneath, which was a stage director. I believe he was a stage director. Right under that, we've got Mr. and Mrs. Clint Eastwood. Kind of neat. Under that, we've got Leslie Uggams next to her. We've got Pamela Mason, James Mason's wife. So a lot of neat names, a lot of names in the production of the company and all that. Merv had several production companies. I think one of his notable properties was his Wheel of Fortune, I believe. So kind of neat stuff. But as far as our list goes, we've got here Clint Eastwood, Jan Michael Vincent, Doug McClure, Pamela Mason, singer-songwriter, Leslie Uggam, singer, Marty Allen, comedian, Arthur Murray, dance studios, Burt Reynolds, actor, Dinah Shore, actor, Gina Hackman, David Soul, he was Hutch from Starsky and Hutch, just recently passed away, Wayne Rogers, Trapper John from MASH, Ross Martin, Artemis Gordon from Wild Wild West, Burt Parks did the Miss America show for years, Joe Flynn was Captain Binghamton, I believe, from McHale's Navy, Toady Fields, actor, Don Hamilton, actor, and then Dar Robinson was a stunt. He did a lot of stunts. He actually, in the logbooks, it shows where Dar Robinson jumped out of this aircraft, did a parachute jump over Caesar's Palace in Vegas. Kind of neat to see, just that kind of provenance, and that's one of the reasons why we call the aircraft the Hollywood Bomber, is kind of the stars and starlets that have been in this aircraft, and then also now it kind of developed that this aircraft, the Hollywood Bomber, is now the star, continuing the provenance and the history of the aircraft. So again, we're kind of keeping the timeline going. We're getting this aircraft back to flying condition. After Merv owned the aircraft passed to a couple other companies, Gemini Resources and another one, I think Bond Property, something of that nature. But after that, we believe the aircraft was used for aerial photography and things of that nature for several years. Unfortunately, in 1983, I believe it was, the aircraft was seized by the DEA. The reason is, this aircraft was caught hauling dope. What do you do with an old freight type plane, a cargo type plane? This aircraft was never a cargo plane, but you can take the seats out and all that. So what happened with old airplanes in the corner of the airports back in the 80s? Well, a lot of them unfortunately ended up hauling dope and that kind of stuff. Bad news. Good news is this aircraft was caught. It was seized by the DEA, went to GSA surplus, and was sold for $1,400 to one of the local community colleges here, Tarrant County College. They picked it up as GSA surplus, and for the next 30 years, the aircraft never flew. It was flown to Fort Worth Meacham Airport, and then was used as a maintenance trainer. In fact, many of the folks at our museum here actually trained in this airplane when they went through their airframe power plant curriculum at the college. So kind of neat that we've got a connection that way. So for 30 years, the aircraft kind of languished as just a maintenance trainer, taking carburetors, putting them on, or taking them off, putting them on, doing engine runs, compression checks, things like that. But it kind of sat forlorn, sitting outside, windows open, bird nests getting into it, just kind of being ignored. About 10 years ago, back in the early 2000s, one of the professors out there, Kurt Landrum, he and his crew were looking through the logbooks and realized that the aircraft was owned by Jackie Cochran. Jackie Cochran was noted for the wasps, and at that time, many of the wasps were still alive. So a restoration effort was started at the college to start working on the aircraft. However, because of lack of space, lack of budget, and kind of overall lack of, it wasn't in the wheelhouse, so to speak, of the college, the effort was kind of terminated, and about 3 years ago, the project was moved in around 2020-ish, something like that. The project was moved to the Vintage Flying Museum here at Meacham Airport. So we were very fortunate to have gifted the aircraft to get restored to flying condition. So the aircraft was here for a few years, and we had been friendly with the museum staff. We had worked with them with the college advisory board and all that. And in talking with them, and the Director of Operations, Bill Gorin here, the Director, Chucky Hospers, and the Director of Operations, Bill Gorin, we struck a deal that we would, starting in fall of 22, we would start a restoration effort to get this aircraft to return to flight. Again, we're not restoring this aircraft to sit in a museum to get dusty. This aircraft is going to return to flight. That was the conditions that I was asked to come in under, and that was the way we're going. So to return this aircraft to flight, it's kind of a three-step effort. Number one is return it to flight as far as airworthiness. Everything will be 100% airworthy. It'll basically be a huge annual inspection and checking every system, making sure everything's conformed, removing obsolete equipment, and making sure we have the latest and greatest materials and the aircraft is safe. Phase number 2 will be interior refurbishment, and phase number 3 will be exterior refurbishment. So return to flight, we'll be bringing this aircraft in this paint scheme. The interior will probably not be complete. We'll have the seats all refurbished, the floors refurbished, but the interior walls and all that will be somewhat naked. You'll be looking at the inside of sheet metal for a little while. Again, once we get the aircraft flown, debugged and all that, then we'll go to the interior and then the exterior. The plan on the interior is our interior is going to be 1954. This aircraft was built during the golden age of corporate aviation, and we're going to return the interior. It's club seating, front and back. In the front, there's two facing two up in the front portion of the cabin, a fifth seat on the rear right side, and then there was a small beverage area and all that. That'll all be refurbished. We did have originally a little bathroom or a little toilet in the back. That's been removed. We're going to use that probably for camping gear or display gear for whenever we're going on trips with this thing or flying with customers or students. So kind of neat thing there. We'll come back to the students here in just a second. So that's the way the cabin's going to be set up. That's going to be the end game on that. So that's where we're going there. The cockpit and all that was, when we received the aircraft, was just a lot of radios in and out, chopped and all that. So what we're doing on the instrument panel is we're going to modern instruments. We want this aircraft to have huge dispatch reliability when we go to air shows. So that's being all modern instruments, and everything's refinished, overhauled and all that. So that's our goal on there. All new windows. You can see these blue windows. These are all new windows on the side. The front of the cockpit windows have been replaced, and the interior details will eventually be replaced too. Right now the pilot co-pilot seats are in reupholstery, as is the cabin seats. So those are going to be done. We're going to have 7-place intercom in the aircraft, so we're going to be able to have talkability all around in the cockpit to the cabin, and then we also have USB ports in the back and front for any of that kind of stuff. So that'll be kind of neat. Another thing is, you'll see up in the front of under the windshield, we've got Jackie Cochran, which at the time she owned this aircraft was Colonel Jacqueline Cochran, U.S. Air Force retired, and we have her service ribbons as an homage to Jackie under her name there up under the cockpit. And as kind of a fun thing we've done is we've named the two engines. We've got number 1 engine is Merv, number 1 engine is Jackie, number 2 engine is Merv, and we'll have on the inside of the nacelles, we'll probably have a Fifrenella for Jackie and probably the Merv's Griffin on the other nacelle. So it'll be kind of a fun time. The crew are having a good time of it. So kind of neat stuff. How is this aircraft getting done? Where's the money coming from and all that? Well, some of the money's coming from you. We do have a GoFundMe going, but this is a very expensive endeavor. This will probably cost close to, in parts and materials, probably close to $100,000 and that kind of stuff. We are very fortunate to have a lot of corporate sponsors helping us out, so that's great. And again, we love that. But there are sacrifices. Museums actually had to sacrifice. They had an aircraft that they sold, and they were intending to get a training aircraft so that they could do rides with, a Warbird, and we've been very fortunate on the project for the museum to gift us with those funds to let us get to the finish line. But it's our goal to pay back the museum to help them get their training aircraft or their aircraft that they can do Warbird rides. So again, through sponsorships, through donations and all that, we want to really kind of refill that. We've got a GoFundMe going, but it hasn't really kicked off the way we want to, but we think it will. It's just, we got to get this thing flying, we got to get this thing making noise. So it's all good stuff. So that's what's going on there with that. The neat thing too is because Jacqueline Cochran, Colonel Jacqueline Cochran, Jackie Cochran, owned the aircraft, what the museum here, the Vintage Flying Museum of Fort Worth, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using this aircraft to promote women in aviation trades. Not just pilots, mechanics, engineers, operations, dispatch, whatever is to promote and hopefully light that fire for women to get into the aviation trades and give them an opportunity to see and feel and experience aviation. The neat thing about this aircraft, I told you, we've got a 7-place intercom. We can put 7 folks in this aircraft. We can do discovery flights. We can have Young Eagles flights. We can ride 6 people at a time, hop seats, and we don't have to land like you would have to in a little small Cessna or Piper aircraft. So it's great. We can take, with our 7-place intercom, again, the neat thing about that is we've got talkability throughout the cabin. We can do airborne. We can do a lecture in this thing airborne. How cool is that? The other thing we can do too is we can also take this aircraft and fly it, and as the museum does a lot of STEM education, we can take this aircraft and fly it to a remote airport and do a STEM class right on the ramp at your airport. So that's what we're doing. That's what's going on with the Hollywood Bomber. That's what the project is. Our goal is to have this aircraft flying in the spring of 24, and we want to see this aircraft, we want you to see this aircraft in Oshkosh in 2024. Hey guys, we've got visitors coming through. They're coming through. Keep on walking. Don't worry about it. You walk that way. That's a camera. We got a camera going. Yeah, walk around that way. It's okay. I'll cut you out. Anyway, little interruption there, but that's what it's all about. We've got guests coming in. We're at an active museum. It's the Vintage Flying Museum, Operative Word Flying. The aircraft here are all about flying, so definitely come and visit. Come and see the Hollywood Bomber. And again, on behalf of the crew here, the channel is HangaRatz. The project is the Hollywood Bomber. I'm Bill. And again, on behalf of the crew, thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for donating. And we are going to see you at Oshkosh AirVenture 24. We're going to see you hopefully at the beach party this fall in 24, and hopefully Sun and Fun 25. So for me, I'm Bill. We're out. Go fly yourself.